Okay, I am back. If you were with me a few minutes ago, I am sorry I lost you. I am in Vancouver, Canada right now on my way to Whistler, and I did not want to miss a Childproof Parenting live with you today. This is important, not just because I want to connect with you and I want to answer your questions, but I have a reader question that I want to make sure I answer today. And this goes out to Nicole, and she had a question about how do you respond, or what do you do with an explosive child? And I think we've all experienced an explosive child at one point or another. So I wanted to make sure I address that today. If this is the first time you and I have met, I'm Melissa Benaroya of Childproof Parenting. I am a licensed clinical therapist. I've been working with children and families for over 20 years now. It makes me old. And I'm really excited to be here with you because I am passionate about helping parents not only respond confidently to their child and their child's behaviors and big emotions, but build the relationship that they want with their child as well. So I am going to share with you Nicole's email to me, and then I will respond and hopefully give you some great ideas on how to respond to your child as well. So I pulled it up here. As you can see, I'm in the car, so I literally pulled over the side of the road so I can make sure I'm here with you at noon today. So here is the email. So halfway down her email, she said, our biggest challenge right now is, and I'm going to use the name Jane to protect her child's identity. Jane's explosive reactions. She is funny, smart, sweet, and has a ton of energy. She is affectionate and loving, but she is also strong-willed, independent, and stubborn. Who has a child like that? I think many of us do. I know I have at least one of those. When she doesn't get what she wants, she screams, cries, hits, kicks, almost immediately. She is bossy and controlling with other kids. At the playground, she likes to tell them what to do or tries to physically stop them from doing what they're playing with stop them from what they're doing. I'm nervous and anxious at the playground because I'm afraid she's going to unknowingly hurt someone. There have been 2 incidences that particularly worried me. At school, she was playing with a little boy doing some gardening. These 2 are like oil and water, she says. He was teasing her, telling her she couldn't do something, and she hit him in the face with a gardening shovel. Okay. Okay. So, sorry, there's a little pause there. So this is something we can talk about later. So she recently had a friend over. So here's another scenario. She also had a friend over to play, and the little girl wanted to go downstairs, but Jane didn't want her to. So Jane slammed the door in her face. And this family in their house, they had big wooden doors. She could have broken this other girl's little hand. Nicole says, I don't want to be dramatic or make more of it than it is, but I'm worried and don't know what to do. My husband and I are aware that she needs more consistency. Her teachers also mentioned this. Her schedule is very different day to day. She goes to school in the morning and then has several different grandparents pick her up in the afternoon. Or she stays at school after school. So both parents work full time. Mom might be cutting back hours to provide more consistency. However, I honestly don't know how to help her once I'm there. Okay, so there's a lot of meat there, which is great. So at first I want to acknowledge Jane's behavior, and Jane is the little girl in this scenario. Jane has a completely underdeveloped brain. And with that underdeveloped brain, there is a lack of impulse control. And she is in her preschool years right now. And because of her age, that she will respond many times. And most kids, not just Jane, but most kids this age will respond physically, because even though she may be a verbal child, she doesn't have the skills to communicate what she wants or what she needs necessarily in the moment, especially when she's overcome with a big emotion. So just want to normalize that. I hear this all the time, so don't be overly concerned. I understand that safety is a concern in some of these scenarios, and there is a lot that we can do. So, 2 incidents. So first, Nicole, I want you to respond with empathy, and that's really hard to do when we're feeling reactive. But respond empathetically and calmly, like, oh no, what happened? Or, hey, what's going on? So by just kind of gently drawing her attention to what happened, we don't put her on the defensive right away. Because when she's on the defensive, she's not going to hear what's coming next. And there needs to be a dialogue after one of these situations. So we're going to start with empathy, and then maybe we might do a little bit of coaching. And I draw from Gottman's emotion coaching. So a great place to start is just simply asking what happened. Let your child tell their story. When they feel heard, they're going to be more likely to listen to you, cooperate, and come up with a better idea. So let her tell her story, maybe ask her what she wanted or what she needed, and then reflect back what you hear. So paraphrase back exactly what she said to you. Now, when I say exactly, I don't mean word for word, but, generally some of the things that she shared with you. After she shares, you reflect back. This might be a great time to even go to how she might have been feeling. So asking her about, how did you feel? Or maybe she doesn't have a lot of language around emotions, like, were you angry or were you sad? So giving her some choices in identifying that emotion, so in the future she can identify it and use her words to tell you how she's feeling, or tell her friend how she's feeling in those moments. A lot of young kids like to use the word frustrated, and they apply it to a lot of things, but it's super empowering to have language to explain how you're feeling or what you want. So after you've given her the opportunity to share what happened, what she wanted, what she needed, how she felt in that moment, and maybe you're having this conversation with both kids. So this isn't just a one-on-one. This might be a conversation you have with both kids. So both kids take turns in telling their story, and then you reflect back to each of them. After you kind of set the table and understand what was going on, and many times we think we know what's going on, or we saw, but we're not exactly sure. Many times we're wrong. So I want to just be clear that step is really, really important. After they've said whatever they need to say, this is a time when we can start doing some brainstorming. And ideally, we want our child to do some brainstorming. So we might say something like, hey, what could you do instead of slamming the door if you didn't want her to go upstairs? Or what could you say to your friend if you didn't want her to go upstairs and play with your Barbie doll? So asking her to come up with some language, or what are some other things that you've done in the past when somebody wants to do something you don't want to do? So we can ask her to identify times where she's done something different, or we can even coach her to a time that she's been successful. So a time where she's done something else that's had a better outcome. Like, hey, remember last week when Teddy was over and he wanted to go in the sandbox and you didn't? What did you say, or what did you do? So we can help brainstorm. And ideally, we want to come up with 2 or 3 ideas. Now, if your child can't come up with any ideas, and you can't coach them to any ideas, in coaching you might say things like, do you want to hear what other kids do in this scenario? Or, hey, when I was a kid, do you want to hear what I would have done? Or, I had the same situation with my sister and this is what I did. So kind of coaching some ideas. If that is not possible, this might be a place where you offer choices. And when I say offer choices, you have to offer 2 choices, 2 very specific choices, 2 that you're okay with and 2 you're going to follow through on. So this may, in lieu of the brainstorming, be a place where you offer her 2 choices of what she could do in this scenario. And once she makes a choice, or decides what she would do. And maybe it's in the moment. So maybe we have an opportunity to try again and do over, which is great because then we get to kind of apply this right away. Sometimes this is just an opportunity to brainstorm. So the next time this happens, she has something else to say or do versus responding or reacting physically in that moment. So letting her choose either one of the scenarios that you brainstormed together or one of the choices that you offered. And then maybe in that moment she tries it and it doesn't go well, and we can kind of start the process over. Like, what happened? How was the response? That didn't work. Is there something else you could do or try? So there's that opportunity to ask more questions, and we can just kind of circle back. Now, we may be able to do this in the moment, and this might also be a conversation that we save for later. So it's perfectly fine that when you're leaving the park and your child's strapped in their car seat, or they're in the back seat, or maybe they're even, you have a teenager, or they're sitting in the front seat with you, just kind of going back to like, hey, what was happening back there? I noticed this happened, or, so going back and reflecting. It's never too late. You can even, revisit this at bedtime. So I think it's a great opportunity to have an emotion coaching conversation. Now, sometimes, and here's kind of another response, and you can use them separately or together. If there's something serious and you want to teach your child in this moment, and emotion coaching is a teaching tool, but you can also use consequences. And when I say consequences that are either natural or logical. Consequences can easily become a punishment, so it's important that you create consequences that teach. So in this scenario, maybe she's got her friend over, she slammed the door, and the consequence is, oh man, it looks like it's time for Jenny to go home now. So the logical consequence is, if you can't play nicely with your friend, she leaves. So that consequence is related to what happened, not able to play together well. It's reasonable. It's not like, hey, you know what, Jenny's going home and you're never going to see her again. It's just like, hey, she's going to go home today. We can try again tomorrow. No big deal. So it's related, it's reasonable, and it's delivered respectfully. So these are the 3 R's of positive discipline, which I think are really helpful in formulating logical consequences. So, delivered respectfully just means calmly, respectfully, and not, out of frustration or anger. Because if it's like, you know what, I've had enough. Emily's going home now. You guys can't get along. When it's delivered that way, it immediately becomes a punishment. So we've got to be really clear. There's kind of a gray area there. So it's important that you are intentional in creating that consequence. And you may do that in the moment, or you can do it later. So it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, that wasn't okay, and there's going to be a consequence, and Dad and I are going to talk about it, or Mom and I are going to talk about it, and we'll let you know what it is. Sometimes that's a consequence in itself, just like the fear of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen. I also mentioned natural consequences, and a natural consequence is something that happens in response to your child's behavior without you doing anything or getting involved or saying anything. So maybe Emily says, I want to go home now. So the natural consequence is her friend doesn't want to play with her. She wants to leave. So perfect. We facilitate that, and then your daughter learns, like, nobody wants to play with me when I slam doors in their face. So I just wanted to give you a few ideas, Nicole, and everybody else, on how we can help our children through these big emotions and these big behaviors, because they're going to have them. There's going to be lots of them. And the more that we are consistent in responding this way, the easier it's going to be for them to manage difficult situations and manage their emotions. So again, today we were talking about how to help an explosive child. And ideally we want to move them from being explosive to being responsive. And that is a process for most people. I mean, even for adults, going from being reactive to being responsive. So just a few childproof parenting tips for today. I want to let you know that the rumor is true. I'm going to be hosting a boot camp coming the beginning of September, and I'll let you know more about that. And this is really to get your parenting back in shape. So be on the lookout. I will be sending you information. I'll be posting it here on Facebook. And if you're on my mailing list, you will definitely get an email about this free parenting boot camp. All right, I gotta go. I'm on my way to Whistler. I gotta get out of here, but I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to see you and make sure I respond to Nicole today because she was in a little bit of a panic. So again, if you have questions, you want feedback, feel free to email me or respond to any of my emails. I try to answer questions by email, but if not, I will do it in the form of a blog post or a live here. Again, have a fabulous weekend. Thanks for showing up. I will see you next Friday. Bye.